This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. What if I'm wrong? What if I leave this relationship and it turns out they were actually a good person? What if I've been misreading everything all along? What if I destroy this family, this life that we've built together, and I was wrong the whole time? What if they are not a covert narcissist? What if I'm wrong? Feel how heavy this is? Feel how much space it takes up? This question lives in the minds of so many who are dealing with covert narcissistic abuse. It's quietly in the background when things are calm. It's loudly in the foreground when things are falling apart. It follows you into the shower. It keeps you up at 3 a.m. It sits across from you at the dinner table while you smile and pass the food around and wonder if you're losing your mind. And the cruelest part, the more you try to answer it, the more it multiplies. Because every time you get close to clarity, every time something happens that makes you think, yes, this is real, something is wrong here, a voice comes in and it says, but what if you're too sensitive? What if you're the problem? What if you walk away from something real because you couldn't handle it? What if you're wrong? That question isn't just a thought, it's a weight that you carry. And it's exhausting. And I want you to know, if that question is living inside of you right now, you are certainly not alone. Not even close. It is one of the most common things that I hear from people when they reach out to me. Not, I know something is wrong and I need help leaving. Yes, I do get some of that. But the most common is, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making this up? What if I'm the one who's broken? And I do understand why this happens, because you are not a person who is taking this lightly. When somebody comes in and says that to me, it tells me that they're really sitting with all of this. It's not someone who's throwing away a relationship carelessly and easily. No, you've thought about this. You've prayed about this. You've sat with this. You've talked yourself in and out of it more times than you can count. The fact that you're still asking it, the fact that you cared this much about getting it right, really says something about who you are as a person. But that question has a way of stopping everything. It stops any momentum that maybe you get towards clarity, towards awareness. It doesn't just slow you down, it freezes you because the stakes feel impossibly high. If you're right, staying is costing you something you may never fully get back, and that is you, your life, your sense of self, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your family and friends. But if you're wrong, if you blow up your life, hurt someone who actually loves you, and you lose the years that you've invested into this, how do you live with that? So you just stay in the question, because the question, as painful as it is, feels safer than the answer. At least in the question, You haven't done anything irreversible yet. At least in the question, there's still the possibility that you're overreacting and that things will get better, that the person you fell in love with is still in there somewhere. So the months pass, and the months become years, and the years can even become decades. And the question stays exactly where it was. Except now it has company because now it brings friends. The questions now start becoming, how much longer can I do this? Who am I becoming? Who am I? Is this what my life is going to look like for the rest of my days? How can we possibly make sense of all of this? First, I want to really look at that question, what if I'm wrong? The what if I'm wrong question feels like wisdom. It feels like a pause. It feels like being responsible. It feels like you're being fair to your partner, like you're giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're not rushing to conclusions. And there's definitely some truth to that. There are times that, yes, we need to take a step back. We need to self reflect and pause and question our judgments and question our perceptions. But here's what I want you to ask. How long have you been asking this question? How long? A couple of days? A few weeks? A month? A year? 5 years? A decade? Because there's a difference between pausing to reflect and giving someone the benefit of the doubt, which I think we should do. There's a difference between that and being frozen indefinitely by a question that just never gets answered. It never really becomes clear because every time you get close to clarity, something pulls you back into doubt. And this cycle of almost knowing and then doubting yourself again, that's not neutral. That's not the normal give and take in a relationship, the giving the benefit of the doubt and then taking some of the explanations and apologies that you get. No, this cycle of almost knowing and then not knowing and being frozen, it's exhausting, paralyzing, maddening, crazy making. In healthy relationships, people don't spend years questioning whether their partner is actually a good person or not. Do you know anyone in your world that has a healthy long-term relationship? I mean, anyone. Yes, they do exist out there. So we're looking at friends, family, coworkers, church members, anyone. Ask them the question. Do you spend days on end, even years, agonizing over the question of whether your partner is a good person or not? See what kind of response you get. When you ask this, I want to know what they say. Send me the comments here or whatever platform you are on, wherever you can find me. How did your friend, family member, coworker respond to you? I can't wait to read their answers. Now let's actually answer this question. What if you are wrong? Let's say, for the sake of this moment, this conversation, that maybe you're wrong. Maybe your partner is not a narcissist. Let's say you're just dealing with a flawed person, like so many of us are. Maybe they're struggling, maybe emotionally immature, maybe dealing with their own trauma, and maybe there's some truth to all of this. But here's what I want you to ask as well. Given that knowledge, let's say that this is true, does that change how you feel in this relationship? Does it change the fact that you are walking on eggshells? Does it change that you second guess yourself constantly? Does it change that you feel lonely even when you're together? Does it change that your needs constantly go unmet? That conversations somehow always end with you apologizing? Because here's the truth. The label does not have to be the deciding factor in your life. In fact, I would strongly encourage that it's not the deciding factor. You do not need a clinical diagnosis to validate your pain. You don't need to be 100% certain that they are a covert narcissist to acknowledge that this relationship is harming you. The question was never really, are they a narcissist? The real question is this relationship healthy for me? Is it supporting growth and connection for both of us? Is it laying a healthy foundation for the future of our family? But we become so fixated on the label. And I think it's because we've been taught that we need justification in order to leave or in order to address this. We need a reason that's big enough, clear enough, undeniable enough so that no one can question us and so that we really don't even have to question ourselves. We're looking for that justification. So we think if I can just prove that they're a narcissist, then I have permission to fill in the blank, to address it, to face them, to tell my friends and family, or to even leave. But that's not really how this works. You don't need a diagnosis. You don't need to diagnose someone in order to protect yourself. You don't need them to be the villain in a way that everyone else can see. No. Most of your world around you, in fact, will probably never actually see this, even if you do talk to them about covert narcissism. You are allowed to leave a relationship that is hurting you. Period. That's a full sentence right there. You don't need anything more. These relationships are devastating to your mental, emotional, psychological, and ultimately physical well being. There is a huge difference between a disappointing marriage and a destructive one. Now, let's talk about why this fear is especially common in the relationships with a covert narcissistic person. If you're dealing with a covert narcissist, doubt is not an accident. Self-doubt is actually one of the primary outcomes of this dynamic. Gaslighting, whether subtle or overt, is designed to make you question your own perception of reality. That's what it is. So over time, you stop trusting your instincts. You second guess your own memories. You don't trust your own emotions, your own perceptions. You do start wondering, am I being too sensitive, too dramatic, too much? Your own perceptions are a thing of the past. They just don't exist anymore. Everything starts to revolve around the covert narcissist. So when you ask, what if I'm wrong? I want you to gently consider, when did you learn to doubt yourself so much? Who taught you to doubt yourself so thoroughly? Was it you? Or was it years of being told that what you saw, what you felt, what you experienced, what you remember isn't quite right? Imagine having a close friend who comes to you and describes their relationship, and they tell you what you've experienced. Like they describe the relationship you're living. But imagine it's a friend telling you this. They describe the walking on eggshells, the confusion, the loneliness, the way they never felt like they're good enough or perfect enough or just enough in general. They tell you that they've been questioning their own sanity for years. Would you tell them? But what if you're wrong? What if your partner is actually a good person? Or would you look at them with compassion and say, I don't know what to call what's happening, but I know this is not okay. You deserve to be heard, to be seen, to be validated. It doesn't matter whether your perceptions are exactly right or not. Your perceptions still count. Well, give yourself that same compassion. Now, let's go back to that question again. What if you actually are wrong? What if they are a good person and this still is not the right relationship for you? I want to talk about this because it's a part that people don't talk about enough. Two things can be true at once. Someone can not be a narcissist, and the relationship can still be one that you might need to leave. Someone can love you in their own way and still cause consistent harm to you. Someone can even have some genuinely good qualities and not be a healthy partner for you and actually have narcissistic traits that are interfering. So let me give you a few examples here. Your partner might be the most generous, fun, life of the party person when things are going well. But the moment stress enters the picture, they shut down completely. They go cold. They disappear emotionally, sometimes for days on end. And you are left alone to hold everything together because someone's still got to do that. The kids, the household, the budget, the finances, the worry, the stress that they're running from. And you spend all of your time taking care of it and managing their mood at the same time, walking on eggshells until they come back to you. They are this wonderful person in the sunshine, But life is not always sunshine, and you cannot build a
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Everyone knows winter is the real mess maker. You don't need WeatherTech floor liners for summer, unless you hit the beach and half the beach ends up back in your car, or the campsite dirt ends up in your trunk. Then you'd want a cargo liner. Or a road trip goes sideways, lemonade spills, ketchup goes rogue, ice cream drips. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy about those WeatherTech seat protectors. So just to be clear as the mud you're inevitably going to step in this summer, you don't need WeatherTech. Unless you plan on doing summer. Visit WeatherTech.com today.
stable life with someone who vanishes every time it rains. Here's another example. Your partner can be tender and loving in private, intimate moments. It can seem so real and genuine. And yet, the moment that you are not in bed with them, something shifts. Subtle digs disguised as jokes, your ideas dismissed or talked over, your feelings minimized, and when you speak up, they look at you like you're imagining things. I was just joking. You're so sensitive. No one else takes what I say that way. The love is real in those quiet, intimate moments. But love that only shows up when they want something from you, and something in particular in this example, and disappears or turns cruel once they are satisfied, that's not a foundation that you can build a healthy relationship on, whether they're a narcissist or not. Here's one more example. Your partner might be an incredible parent, patient, playful, present with the children, and still be someone who makes you feel invisible. Someone who meets everyone else's needs with ease, but consistently treats you and your needs as an inconvenience. Someone who saves their best self for everyone outside of the home and just gives you whatever is left over. That disconnect is its own kind of loneliness, and loneliness inside a marriage, inside a commitment that you gave everything to, can be one of the most disorienting and destructive kinds of pains that there is. My point is, the details may look different for each of you, but the common thread is the same. Good moments do not erase harmful patterns. You are allowed to acknowledge both without having to choose which one is more true. None of these relationships are simple. None of these people are purely villain. Okay, I think we can get to the point where some of them are, but most of us are not dealing with somebody who is purely a villain. And this is exactly what makes this so hard, and exactly why that question, what if I'm wrong, has so much power over you. But here's what I want you to hear. You can hold compassion for your partner and still choose yourself. Those two things are not in conflict with each other. You do not have to decide that they are a monster in order to decide that the relationship is not healthy for you. You do not have to stop loving someone, or at least caring for someone, in order to recognize that loving them is costing you too much. So let's talk about what actually to do with that fear, because you deserve more than just living inside of this question for the rest of your life. Don't dismiss it. Let's examine it. I want you to ask yourself, what would being right, quote, being right about all of this, what would that actually change for me? If you knew for certain that they were a covert narcissist, what decision would you make? Would you demand they go to therapy? Would you leave? Would you tell your friends and family? Why are you waiting for certainty to make those decisions? The pain is there. There's a reason you are here listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. Words somewhere jumped out and grabbed you for a reason. So why wait? Why not speak up? Why not start making decisions for you? Why not start a path of healing so that you can have more clarity about what the rest of your life should look like? Ask yourself, What is my body telling me? Not your mind, because we've been trained to override our instincts. We've been trained to override our logic. But what about your body? Do you feel safe? Emotionally, psychologically, mentally? Do you feel at peace, spontaneous, comfortable, connected? Do you feel like yourself? Or do you feel like a total stranger to yourself? Ask yourself, what has the pattern been over time? Not the good days, but the pattern. Because patterns don't lie the way individual moments can. Individual moments can look good and really convince us that we're wrong about this person. But what about the pattern? How long have you been trying to decide if they're a good person or not? You can ask yourself, are they a good person having bad days or a bad person having good days? You can ask yourself that for a very long time, and you may never find the answer. Start looking at the pattern. And last, ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if I trusted myself, if I listened to me and trusted what my body and what my instincts are telling me? This is where I want you to get really honest. Because often when we dig beneath the what if I'm wrong question, we find that the fear is not actually about being wrong. The fear is about being right. Because if you're right, if you trust yourself and everything you've felt and noticed and lived through turns out to be exactly what it seemed, then the relationship that you've been trying so desperately to save, it might not actually be savable. And that's heavy. That grief is real. That loss is real, and it's okay to be afraid of it. So instead of asking, what if I'm wrong? Ask yourself, what if I'm right? You have spent so much time and energy stress testing the possibility that you are wrong. You've examined it from every angle. You've given every benefit of the doubt. You have made every excuse, extended every grace, and assumed the best at every possible turn. Have you given even half of that energy to the possibility that you are right? What if the patterns you've noticed are real? What if the way you feel in this relationship, small, confused, lonely, never good enough, maybe it's not a reflection of your inadequacy, but a completely reasonable response to what has actually been happening to you? What if the version of yourself that you can barely remember, the one who felt confident, peaceful, like yourself, what if that person didn't disappear because something's wrong with you? What if they just disappeared because they had to, just to cope, just to survive? What if you're right? Then you're not crazy, you're not too sensitive, you're not the problem. You are someone who's been navigating something very difficult, largely alone for a very long time. And you've done it while simultaneously convincing yourself that maybe none of it was real. That is actually one of the most exhausting things a person can do. And you've been doing it a very long time. Maybe you're afraid that your judgment can't be trusted because someone has spent a long time convincing you exactly of that. Maybe you're afraid that what you find, when you really get honest with yourself, will require you to blow up the life that you've built. Maybe you're afraid that trusting yourself might actually somehow prove that what they've always said about you is true, that you are too sensitive, too much, or too broken to be trusted. Regardless of where you are on this, losing the ability to trust yourself, that is one of the deepest wounds of covert narcissistic abuse. Because everything else can be rebuilt. You can rebuild a home, a life, a routine, a sense of safety. But when you can no longer trust your own mind, when you genuinely don't know if what you're experiencing is real or not, or if you're the problem or not, that shakes something very foundational. That makes every decision feel impossible. That is why you are still in this question. Not because you're weak or indecisive or incapable of seeing clearly, but because the very tool that you need to find clarity, which is your own judgment, your own instincts, your own inner voice, that's the thing that's been the most damaged. And you cannot heal a wound that you don't first acknowledge is there. But here's what I want you to really hold on to today. That voice inside you, the one that brought you here, The one that keeps whispering that something's wrong here. The one that you've talked yourself out of trusting 100 different times, maybe 1,000. It's still there. It's always been there. And the fact that you are still listening to it, even just a little, even after everything you've been through, even after all the times that you were told not to, the fact that you're still listening to it, that's not nothing. That's everything. You don't have to have everything figured out today. You do not have to know with certainty what your relationship is or what you want to do, what your next step looks like, or what your partner is or isn't. You're allowed to still be in the question. But I hope that today the question shifts, even just a little, from what if I'm wrong to what if I'm worth listening to? Because you are. You always have been. Healing does not begin with certainty. It does not begin when you finally have all the answers or when everything finally all makes sense. It begins in a moment exactly like this one, when you decide quietly and without fanfare that your inner voice deserves to be heard, that your pain deserves to be taken seriously, that you deserve to take up space in your own life again. That moment can be right now. It can start today. And wherever it leads you, I am rooting for you every single step of the way. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more. It's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.